So let's see the ends.
So we see Impermanence in Raphael's hand, which can be quite relevant here. He is going first, so he'll have
Definitely.
it. Realistically, it's not going to end up negating spells or traps in this matchup, but every bit of extra interaction and extra back row is a great boon for him here.
It's definitely, I mean, the really cool thing, I think it is the first time this weekend that we have seen actually Flame Buffalo in his hand.
Yes.
All
100%.
the other builds were using Lady Debug, which is fair enough.
He's playing both Debug and Buffalo,
exactly.
so he has 5 of these cards in his deck.
And yeah, Flame Buffalo is such a cool card. As you said, you can draw into your non-Salamangreat cards.
Exactly.
And it's basically a safer version of Pot of Desires.
Yep.
And the reason why Raphael is using it instead of Pot of Desires is because of Sanctum. He's playing Sanctum. He told me that it is one of the best cards of the format, in his opinion. And you don't want to risk banishing the site, and there is the Sanctum, so quite a big
Looks
deal.
like he might have drawn Sight as well.
Did he?
He drew a monster alongside the Sanctum, but it might just be the Gazelle.
That would be unfortunate.
Sanctum is very scary in the format. I think once you see Sanctum, if you're on an extra deck like this Thunder Dragon deck, you kind of have to hold any interaction such as Ash Blossoms for that Sanctum.
For sure. It's one of the scariest cards in the format. Raphael is right. There are only a few decks that can still play without an extra deck. And we saw similarly to how the Amorphage monsters are getting popular. It's basically the same thing. And unfortunately with Sight, if you don't deal with it immediately, then you can't attack over it. The effect is still lingering for the entire turn. So
yeah. And as we see, Raphael is just going through the motions. He's doing his kind of turn 1 cycle of skills. He's just getting everything lined up, getting that board that he wants to see. And then anything extra he has, the Impermanence and the Sanctum, that's fantastic.
yeah,
because he'll get
and
set
luckily
4.
he did not draw the Sight, so
Yes.
the Sanctum is live and is gonna be really a good card.
It seems he drew a Flame Buffalo.
Yeah.
It's a similar color picture, but yeah.
Fair enough. And the really good thing about Salamangreat is that when you start things off and you have the roar, yeah, you can negate anything that would contest the Sight. So the Ash Blossom or I don't know, the Impermanence if you use it right away. And
Raphael is just saying, we're just going to Sight straight away. And that's quite interesting. Blindly, you might not be as inclined to do this, but having spoken to him just before the match, he knew what his opponent was playing. It's most likely that they both know what each other are playing. They've been close to each other for the entire tournament, most likely. So, yeah, summoning the Sight here seems completely reasonable. The Thunder Dragon deck does have the advantage that if he can cheat a normal summon, if he can gain some way to get a monster on board, he can at least tribute summon a big creature and start contesting the board a little.
Yeah.
But that will be difficult through the trap cards.
Definitely, and Raphael negates the Sekka slide right away with Roar.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And we can see that this game was definitely decided by the die roll in a way, because they both had really, really good opening ends. The Flame Buffalo, though, gotta say, was the key card, because if that was a Lady Debug, the opening would have been really similar, but the Buffalo drew the Sanctum, and that's the main difference in this game.
And that's something that you see with Salamangreats and something that you also see with Striker in the format, is that as great as their engine cards are, they really are wanting to see the extra cards that they're playing, because those extra cards are their silver bullets, and they're...
In that sense, it's basically similar to how Zodiac was.
Yes.
When you were playing more of a draw engine, because basically you just use your tankies or whatever to get to the engine, and then you were drawing for your decks in hopes of seeing dimensional barriers, traps, solemn strike, whatever, even entrops, and that's the same concept here. You need so little to start things off that then a card like Flame Buffalo, it's really good to draw into the traps. Now it's in the usual danger train.
And again, dangers mean that we're not completely stuck here as the Thunder Dragon player. We can try drawing into cards. If he can end on a Darkus Diablos, Lord of the Lair, that would be a very comfortable spot to be in.
For sure.
We had Neo Space Connector. That seems to be fine. Bigfoot summons. Do you think he would have preferred to have had the Bigfoot discarded so that he can destroy the monster on the field? Although there's the Bale Links
Yeah,
in grave, so.
not particularly. But the wheel of the Salamangreat, it's quite a big deal. And yeah, basically Ludwig doesn't see a way to get out of this game. So Rafael quickly takes game one. Mainly due to the Sanctum, it basically prevented Ludwig from extending anymore. And that's just the power of that card.
How much pressure does Raphael's deck have? Like, on that following turn, would he be able to end the game? Or how does the deck climb up into damage?
I mean, it can, because Rafael is playing Update Jammer, which is a link shoe that, when used as link material, allows you to attack twice with the next link monster. So that's like easy pressure you can come up with. Also, something important to notice, we talked in the past about how good Sanctum is, but something that I really love about Rafael deck is that he is maining the trap trick. That was something crucial, because if Sanctum is so good, why not play 6 copies of it? And that's the same he thinks. So
and that's the thing, he has access to Sanctum, he has access to Impermanence, and he has access to Rage, all from the trap trick. Obviously Sanctum is the better card there, but it means that even if for some reason he draws multiple Sanctums, or if he draws the artifact from his deck,
even just getting Rage is a big deal, because then you're free to search Roar and you have both. So I really like the inclusion.
So Thunder Dragons, they're going to go first here, right?
Yes. And we know that Rafael only plays Ash Blossom in the main deck. So now that we take a look at the side decks, he's definitely going to want to side in Drona Lockbird.
For sure, that's really strong against this danger deck.
Yes, while with the Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, he's not playing any target for this matchup, I believe. So yeah, the Super Polymerization instead.
Yeah.
It could come up, but is he actually playing targets for it? I don't think he is. So it's just for the mirror match.
No.
So
Okay.
yeah, he decided he doesn't want to have extra targets. So I think only the Drone and Lockbears are going to come in. If he feels like it, the Pancrotops, well, I don't think they're particularly good. While Ludwig doesn't even want to side in much.
No.
I think he's playing the Ra, is it? Looks like it could be.
Is that Cookie Mario Drago? That's Cookie Mario Drago, I think.
Okay, he got me excited for nothing. I thought he was actually playing the real Divine Beast of Ra. I've seen
that would be great.
Yeah, I hope it was that. Because I saw some people play that card to counter Sphere Mode, and it makes sense.
Yeah, we've not seen Sphere Mode perform terribly well this event.
Indeed.
And I think because the field is so broad, you do have the issue where Sphere Mode is great against the decks it's good against. But you also need to be able to play without your normal summon.
Yeah.
And there's just so many decks that end their combo on 2 cards, or end their combo on 1
So
card.
Ludwig opens the best end of this deck, which is Batteryman Solar and Wyver Buster. And Rafael right now only has the Fantastical Dragon, which wouldn't really interact, so he needs to see an end trap with it. Because this combo alone, with 2-card combo, ends on Tunigates, Colossus, Saruya, and 2 cards from away from your opponent end, which is quite impressive.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
The great thing with Phantasme in this deck as well is it means you are less likely to be punished for only playing 1 copy of your Artifact Scythe, because if you have it in your hand when you resolve Phantasme, you can shuffle it back into your deck. Do you think he Phantasmes here, or as you know your opponent's going to be doing a lot more link plays, do you just hold it until you can draw more cards and see more of your
you
deck?
probably just hold, because you want to be able to get to the draw or to the Ash, so you can wait for the LP, for example. That should be enough. At least you can Ash it then, if you want. And because right now you can't even Ash School Dread by chains. The thing is, though, that Ludwig is also playing the Space Connector engine, So you might even special summon it off Saruyo if Fantastical comes down, and I mean the Dolphin if he gets it. And he does
see
get
a Dark
it.
Diablos. Diablos is such a polarizing card because there are certain decks which just can't deal with it.
Indeed.
And again, it's kind of interesting because we have a bunch of tech cards like this that have been bouncing in and out of decks. So like Diablos first came out back, I believe it was March of last year. And, you know, it got tested in the Layer of Darkness deck and in the Layer Infernoid deck. But then it kind of disappeared a little while. And then Strikers came out and it played in Strikers. And then Strikers started to fade. And it's just changed a lot.
And now Raphael gets punished for not using Phantasmai, because he did draw into the Dolphin and he can discard it away, and that's a huge deal, because now it's one more card discarded, you have no way to prevent your opponent combo, and he will be able to go for the full deal. So
yeah, exactly.
Huge change. So
that hurts a lot. So was it perhaps correct to just resolve the Phantasme on the first
I mean, I don't think so, because to be fair, even if he's playing the Neospace Connector engine, he only plays one Dolphin, so he needs to draw into it and special summon it off Saruya, and it doesn't seem like it's quite likely. So now, though, the situation looks very grim for Raphael. He is not siding Sphere mode or anything like that, as we know. So there is no way to interact with this board outside of Entrops.
He doesn't have any other artifacts for his Sanctum. So the Sanctum can only summon Sight. And this is the issue that the control decks face in this format. And it's something where a deck like Zodiac had extra game, because with Zodiac, if you were going first, you'd end on a Trident. But even if you were going second, you could get Trident set up and interact straight away. Whereas, you know, your trap cards don't do much here. If you can wrestle back control of the board, you're good. But you don't have access to the Dark Holes and Raigekis or Kaiju Slumbers. So it's interesting. If we see the format kind of shaped this way, is it a possibility that we might see people turning back to finding board removal, or is evenly matched just going to be our de facto?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to see how it will develop. It's definitely not easy. And something we've seen here, for example, is a change in the trend. Everyone was playing Archive Abyss. Well, now they're switching to Crystal Wing because it's easier to deal with cards like Bottle Load, and it makes sense.
Yeah, Crystal Wing is such a powerful card because we're going to bring it up on screen for you guys here. For people who aren't familiar, not only does it let you negate a monster effect on field, but also when it battles monsters, it's able to increase its own attack points.
It's really hard to deal with by battle.
And high attack points are very relevant in this format, particularly when Boral Sword and Boral Load are such prominent cards. So I think Crystal Wing, if you can easily make Crystal Wing, I'd take that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it doesn't prevent cards like Evenly Matched, for example, but since you usually end on Zombie Stein, you should be fine with that.
Yeah. And even if your opponent evenly matches you and you have a kind of clunkier hand or they find some sort of interaction, sitting on a Crystal Wing by itself can often still cause a lot of trouble for decks.
For sure. So now...
Raph gives a little shrug to the crowd and is like,
okay,
you know, sometimes
I have seen enough. I mean, there is plenty of time in the round, but Raphael knows where this is going. As we said, he does not play Sphere mode, and he can never out this board. So we go to game 3, a quick match for now. And now Ludwig can bring in the bombs, let's say, because he has the Dankos, and those we've seen are terrifying against Salamangreat, even though we have not seen on stream a Danko yet.
For sure.
So
we've not seen a Danko today.
Yeah,
we saw a good
against Salamangreat at least. Yeah, that's what I meant. And yeah, the Phantasmaya also help in that sense because you can get to the Danko.
This is a case where the argument for Sanctum becomes really strong, because the problem with the Salamangreat cards and with the Striker cards as well is they're very interactive. and they require the opponent to be doing stuff before you can use them. Whereas Sanctum is a card that is giving you a control aspect, or more stun-like,
Yeah.
as people would say. And yet, you know, standby phase, if Raph has it, he's just going to activate it.
Of course, and that's one of the main reasons why he's playing it, because one of the few weaknesses of Salamangreat is Danko.
Yeah.
And with Sanctum, you don't care what they do afterwards. It's quite unlikely that they can do much without the extra deck, and it also summons monster that contests the Danko, so it's quite a perfect counter.
Another thing to note with Sanctum is it's a very strong argument. If you believe Sanctum is a good card in this format, then if you believe it's a good card and you want to play a control deck, you're not playing Sky Striker.
Yeah.
Because it has such bad synergy with your deck.
Exactly.
Whereas with Salamangreat, you know, you're getting something so you can start link summoning during your turn, or else it's just a 2200 beater. Like, it gives you more damage on board.
Exactly.
And it doesn't prevent you from using your trap cards, unless your opponent has Torrential Tribute.
You
Could
never
happen.
know.
You never know.
You can always, it's a 3. We tend to forget, but it is there.
I think, realistically, we could see Torrential
One day,
reappearing
Yeah.
sometime in the near
Sure.
future.
at some point, it was one of the best cards, like in Zodiac format, for example.
But like in a slow format like this, if there is a control deck that doesn't need to have a monster on board, then
To be fair, even Salaman could play it.
Yeah.
So
another really interesting card that can be considered in a lot of decks like Salaman is Sky Striker Eagle Boosters is a really just generically interesting card. Like I think in a lot of deck building, you know, there's things like Masked Hero Darklaw, which is quite interesting in deck building, and that becomes a lot better if you have something like Eagle Boosters that you can protect it with. Darklaw is a lot less relevant this format, but in the format we just left, Darklaw would have actually been a very strong card if a deck could find a way to properly get him set up. So, we're expecting Raph to go first here, I assume.
of course. So let's see. The Danko are the main concern. He draws into, seems like a combo end.
Monster Reborn, the Search Spell.
Maybe the Buffalo.
Looks like a Buffalo, yeah.
That would be a huge deal, because right now this end is basically just Salamangreat cards.
And a Spinny. Spinny and Buffalo seems quite nice.
It is the Buffalo. And that's a huge deal now for Rafael, because you can see here the difference between Lady Debug. If that was a Debug, sure, this end was good, but it's not like if you have a lot of extenders in this deck, you can do a full combo or any type. You just don't need that many cards. And when you have the Buffalo instead, you can actually look for different cards, and it's a huge deal.
I mean, the great thing about Buffalo, right, is that it sees more cards.
Yeah. And it's quite possible that those are not going to be Salamangreat cards. So that's the best part about it.
The best part about my Salamangreat deck
is not
the
Salamangreat cards. I mean, it is true.
Yeah,
so,
but I mean, that's the thing. We are seeing a format where there's a lot of kind of powerful staple cards, and it's just which engine helps me get to these most kind of consistently.
So the Spinny gets discarded, and he draws. I saw a trap card, so that's already really good.
And that's kind of funny because you have enough trap cards in the deck that you don't mind if you draw one or two of them.
Yeah.
In fact, it's better for you because it means that you can end on a much more impactful board. And he drew Sanctum, which is really nice pickup
And
here.
that's the power of Buffalo, yeah.
Because it means even if Ludwig draws Denkoseka,
it's still going to be in the same scenario. Now we see that he is waiting on the Phantasmai. Do you think he's expecting him to go into a second buildings to play around Kaijus, or why is that?
I'm not sure.
Because he's
I
actually
definitely
risking
would
it,
be.
because if Rafael thinks he's fine, he's not gonna... That's why I think now Ludwig is thinking.
Yeah, that would be reasonable. Yeah, realistically, I don't think seeing 3 cards rather than 2 cards is big enough
Yeah.
of an advantage. Yeah, and he's going to come
And
to that
that's why he goes
conclusion
for
as
Phantasmai.
well.
You obviously want to look for Danko.
Yeah.
Let's see if he gets it. But
He has a lot of draw power to try and find Danko.
He does. He does, but we know that Sanctum is there, so
Yes, exactly.
it's not going to matter too much.
But Danko and a few dangers can just pop on down and start breaking the board apart.
Indeed.
And you
Doesn't
have
seem like he
Phantasmi
gets
as
it.
well.
So. He does not get it,
But I mean, even he potentially could draw it for turn. If either of Sekka's Light's effects resolve, he could gain it then. And also, you're putting more pressure on your opponent because your opponent does know that you're statistically more likely to have seen side deck cards here. So
indeed.
this is the sort of scenario where your opponent has to be thinking like, instead of there being, say, like a 30% chance of seeing a Kaiju, he's now got 33% chance.
And now he does go for the bailing, so Ludwig could have rolled into it, but it's also a reason why he did see the Phantasmite. So let's see what he picks up. Raphael should be flipping Sanctum. He does. You can see Ludwig smiling a little bit.
Yeah, Ludwig does not play Ash Blossom at all.
Yeah, he does not.
And yeah, so he just
And
has
this
to
is basically the same as game one. He needs to find a way. Sekka's Light might be negated from Roar, just like in game one. So we're gonna have to see if he finds a way to deal with this board.
Yeah. I think realistically, if he can find some way to get into Denko Sekka, he's quite favored on this board here, to be honest.
The thing is, you want to use the Sekka's Light as well. So unless, I mean, you can set it and go for the dangers, but...
I think we Sekka's Light first. Because if we draw Denko Sekka, we're
then
just
are you okay with
summoning
it being negated? That's the thing.
I mean, something's going to get negated.
Yeah, that's
Like,
two cards
you just
instead of one.
accept it's going to be negated, and then you can use it later on in the turn to do a shuffle and try to draw into something you need.
Bigfoot needs to be summoned. Let's see.
There could have been an argument for going for Bigfoot first.
Yeah, by setting the Sekka, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
So he gets the Tsuchinoko out of the end. I mean, even though he can't access the extra deck, he's still making a pretty good board, honestly. Yep.
And that's the thing. Like, Raphael has stopped him accessing the extra deck, but the Thunder Dragon Danger deck is able to just throw a bunch of guys on board and start going on the beatdown plan. We're activating Sekka's Light's Banish effect.
Especially if they get to Levianeer somehow, and he's playing 3 copies of Levianeer. So
it's putting back Chupacabra, which is kind of understandable. He has no dangers in graveyard, so you don't really want to be discarding Chupacabra, and it's also not a terribly high value monster in this board state. Like, it doesn't contest things well.
Gets the Danko, but it's quite late, so...
Yes, there is no set card to want to Danko here. I think Danko is still high enough attack that it might be worth considering playing, but it's probably worthwhile just holding it until the next turn. We've survived the turn of sight, and we're able to contest the board a bit.
Yeah, and that's what Ludwig is doing. He thinks that he's fine, so that this board can get him to next turn, and then if that's what he's thinking, why not just keep the Danko for next turn so he can try and push again. Bailings protects, and...
Bailings is a hard once per turn. It's a named once per turn, so it means that even though he has 2 in graveyard, he will not be able to activate the second effect, which is unfortunate.
Sure. But I mean, you still get to keep the Stalio, which is quite a big deal, and he picks up even more. So now he has the circle, and he can go on and try to combo off.
Yeah.
He also has the Monster Reborn, which is not a joke at this moment, because he can even just get something out of Ludwig Grave when he gets there. So
yeah, exactly. He could grab something like a Phantasmi or the Bigfoot after they're sent to graveyard.
To push a lot of damage. and Rafael is playing the bottle load, which we have seen is able to go into a crazy combo with the update jammer, where you
Yes.
attack twice and you can steal 2 monsters from your opponent, which is quite ridiculous.
We've not actually seen this combo yet, and it
No.
is quite an exciting combo
Definitely.
if we are going to see it.
Would be really nice to see it in action here.
Because
Let's see if Rafael's does.
Monster Reborn gives us access to Sunlight Wolf, right? So then
Yeah.
the board as it currently stands plus Monster Reborn is a board load if he wants to use it.
That's why he's debating on the Stalio, because he doesn't want to lock himself under only using fire for this turn.
Yeah, yeah. Big Spore Load is, of course, dark,
Yeah.
which is an interesting thing because, again, it's one of those Dark Link monsters that makes the Orchest deck quite playable.
He goes for another Buffalo, discarding Falco, and this is just not ending anytime soon.
No.
He picks up even more. He picks up the Fusion of Fire, which is not particularly good because of no links on Ludwig Field, but you can still have even one more big threat. So
Yes, yeah. I mean, it means it's all about having contingency plans, right? Ludwig has a lot of cards in his hand, and while we know with our perfect information that
yeah,
they aren't presenting much of a threat here, it is a case that you want to play to your outs.
Sure.
And, you know, you don't want to lose to a random Battle Fader in top 64 of a YCS.
it did happen. So,
So I've heard.
but yeah, right now it seems like he's doing fine. He can definitely go into the Violet Chimera OTK. So it just depends how Rafael wants to do this. But he has all the tools he needs to end this duel even now. He's gonna have to come up to also the Phantasmite being relevant, because you need to target your opponent monsters to go for the Violet Chimera OTK. So if they have a Phantasmite, then it gets problematic. So.
Yeah. And this is where the point in the day that we're at really starts to become apparent. You know, these guys have been playing, this is their 13th round of Yu-Gi-Oh! Across 2 days, and they've probably been doing a bunch of testing prior to that. So it's really important that they're able to stay focused, stay in a good headspace, and make sure that they're not kind of tricking themselves into the wrong play.
Sure.
And so we see that Rafael is being very diligent, and he's counting numbers, he's checking, is this enough damage? Will this line get me to where I want to go? Which, of course, is his attempt to progress to top 32.
It should be pretty doable. Even if he goes for the bottle load, if he doesn't want to go for Fusion of Fire, it's quite easy.
I think so.
So-
If he cannot find game here, though, or if he messes up, then I think the Thunder Dragon deck is in a really strong position to take the game on the following turn. So there's pressure there. He's somebody that's used to the heat of the lights, but for anybody that's not been on feature match before, you know, it's a very different experience to a normal tournament, and it can be a lot of pressure on people.
Definitely. So the Spinny is activated, and they are debating whether he wants to negate with Phantasmite, because apparently he was saying it was fine. So now they're just debating whether he wants to negate or not. So, because let's remember, yeah, he does negate, and that's a big deal for the OTK, because now he gets to discard the Jackalope, and it's gonna be one more threat on board. So
here's Nessie. Yes, and the interaction with Dangers and Phantasma is a really interesting one. It makes it a much more valuable card for the Thunder Dragon deck than a lot of decks in the format. It is already a very good card, but, you know, it's possible that he's able to just hold strong this turn and then can put enough pressure out next turn.
So now
I assume he's checking there to see his Phantasma a once per turn effect, or else checking if it only works for targeting monster cards.
yeah, now we get to see the Jaguar. It's just gonna come down to whether he wants to go for the bottle load, double attack play. It doesn't seem bad, to be honest. but the Fusion of Fire is also an option. He literally just can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Usually when you go for the Violet Chimera OTK, you go for It Leo, and then you use the Field Spell on that to summon just another It Leo.
Yeah.
So that you can use the effect to change its attack to 0 most likely, if you have an Entrap, or like to 500 with the Spinny.
Yeah.
And that's usually enough to have a Chimera that's like 9,000 attacking into a very small monster. So
I do like high attack point monsters.
yeah,
That is a good way to live your life.
it seems like that's like something you can go for here.
Yeah.
Because like Phantasma is once per turn, right?
I don't believe so.
No? Okay, then that's the issue. That's what they were reading. It could not, might not be.
You can only use each effect once per turn.
Yeah, so it is once per turn. So now that that's gone, I am wondering if you could just go for that. You of course needs to find a way to have an Link Monster he uses for the Chimera, but
Yes.
once he's free to do that, it should be pretty easy to OTK.
What's your thoughts on these mixed extra deck type decks? So like Salamangreat, we're seeing they have fusions,
Yeah,
they have
I like it.
Xyz, links.
I like it a lot. I think that was one of the reasons why I was playing Pendulum, which is a deck where you play even more. You play all of them. You play Pendulum, Synchros, Fusions, XYZ, and Links. And I think it's one of those decks where you have a lot of fun while playing. And yeah, it seems like he's going for the OTK. He shows the Fusion of Fire, and Shake, and Raffle takes the match. So congratulations to him. It seems like he's unstoppable lately. So let's go to the post-match discussion.